Interior Design Delhi Regional Chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, for this section, I would like to invite on stage Chairman of IIID Delhi, Mr. Hemant Sood, for the welcome note. Welcome, sir. जोरदार तालियों के साथ, everybody. Hello, sir.
Thank you. That is as zordar as 25 people can manage. Sorry for the delay. It's very sad to start any event with a sorry, but I think we are running an hour and a half late. And I hope our announcements are finally happening, because a lot of people came here at 2 o'clock and now wandering around the exhibition. So hopefully they'll join us in the next 5 minutes. So let me since the lady here was kind enough to introduce us, we are IIID, the Indian Institute of Interior Designers. We are the Apex All India Association for Interior Design, for the profession of interior design. So I see some people who are working in interior design, some students, and of course some very senior people who are here. So this institute is for everybody, the association is for everybody. We have essentially two major things that we do. One is networking and the other is knowledge sharing. That's really what IIID is all about. Just a couple of quick words on lighting design. As you can make out from my age and my white color of my hair, when I started my career, there was nothing really called architecture or interior. Architecture was there, and interior design didn't exist. Nobody knew what was a lighting designer. And we had, the closest we could get to that was MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing consultant. Subsequently, that changed into a electrical consultant who said, okay, electrical consultant will do the lighting. And now I'm very happy to say that we have two stalwarts from the industry who are specialist lighting consultants, lighting designers, and it's now become a full-fledged field of its own. Lighting is the most critical, one of the most critical elements of an interior design. As all of us know, those who are studying and those who are practicing, lighting is what can make or break an interior, and all the material and all the technicalities that go in can get ruined with the wrong lighting. So we are lucky that we have two very, very well-renowned, amazing lighting designers with us. So we'd like to start. I'm sure you've come to hear them and not hear me. So as soon as this announcement finishes, we'll start with the first designer that we have. In no specific order, could I request Harmeet ji to join us first? Mr. Harmeet Singh Issar from Design Matrix. He's very well known, and we're going to see some of his work and his concepts on lighting design. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, we have the slides. So thank you for having us, and we are lighting designers, and I'm going to present very short presentation on trying to explain what do we do and how do we approach towards the projects and how do we work with various architects, interior designers, and professionals. So before that, the important aspect of it, this is very close to my heart aspect of light, which we have to all consider while we work with, specifically in outdoors, which is what is very, very relevant. Of course, it's an interior forum. So we did a quick research and trying to ask people if they do own the night. That is what the question was. And it was literally and metaphorical, both the ways of it. So we got very interesting answers, and we created this research, which we gave it to almost about 300 people, and we have some very interesting answers to them. So the next question what we asked was, what is the first thing which comes into your mind when you think of night? And we gave them answers, which was fear, stress, loneliness, anxiety, calm, joy. And then we let them answer. And this is something very interesting results which we found. If you see, almost about 85% said calm. Although we all want less of night, we are trying to light up our spaces and so much brightness all around us, but we still need night, which is biologically require it also, but that's another day's topic which we can discuss. But this was very interesting to find out how people reacted to it. Then the next question was that when we ask about night, what does it first come to you in all those things? So moon, stars, and dark is something which was very interesting to find. And this is our quick analysis. What we did was all the positive emotions which people said was 58, and then at least one negative emotion 23, and all negative emotions 3. Again, we all want and love night. That's what it is all about, where I'm getting to. Going to the next one, very interesting one and very simple one. How many of us have actually seen Milky Way with naked eye? I think some of who are almost in our 40s, 50s may have seen it in Delhi, but you can hardly see anything. And even if you go about a couple of kilometers away from Delhi, then also you won't be able to see it. So that's something what we are doing to our environment, our conditioning all around by light itself. And we need to think and talk about it a lot, all of us, and address this matter. This is something which you would or could have seen, which is one of the images taken in 2003 in the northwest black cloud. And you can see what you are missing just because of the lighting inside your cities and how we are spilling light all around and trying to not control it well. So then what we thought about and trying to analyze it, if would they own the night more if they would have seen the Milky Way? This is something which this is a quick research and analysis what we did, and which is what you can see the numbers onto it. In the interest of the time, I'm just going to click fast onto it. Then there was another very fun and interesting question which we asked was that what is the color of the night sky? And we were impressed by the answers what we've got. All these colors what you see were answers. You could have blue, light blue. All of the people had their own ways of defining the night sky. So this is the fun bit of it. Then the next question what we asked was, do you feel safer in the bright outdoor spaces? Here it comes a little seriousness comes into it, and the brightness is always perceived as safety, which is by itself, and any lighting guy would agree, is not the truth, which is what we want to. This is a good example of it. What you see is light left hand side has a light flooding out and just clearing into the space, and as soon as you put a hand around it, you can do this with your cameras. All of us have had these issues. So bright light is not going to make it safe. In fact, it will create spaces where people can hide and do things. So we need to work around it. Anyways, so the real question is, much has been said about urban sky glow, but besides being unnatural, is there something do we need to really worry about? Yes. Safety versus extinction. We are losing sea turtles, we are losing bees, we are losing birds, we are losing bats. All these are important part of our biodiversity, and all of them are required to actually get us food onto it. So this is something which is very important to understand. Apart from the engineering aspect of it, energy loss, night sky loss, and many other things. Another question was yellow or white. This is another thing which was asked, and 70% said white. Again, one more thing which is I have figured out in the nutshell. What I concluded was culture and economics are the driving functions against the driving forces against the function. What's happening is white is not a right color temperature outside, and as well as brightest is not the safest one. That is something, but it does not imply by the user preferences what you see. That is something what we got to by this. So, coming back to what a lighting designer does and what do we have to do apart from knowing this knowledge, having this knowledge, what is right and wrong, and when people have their own ideas and things to implement and think about light in that way. So what is important is we as design matrix, as designers, we work very try and build a conscientious design in lighting, which is what the approach is. This is the first project which I would like to. We all have seen AeroCity Delhi. Uh, when we designed this, all you see is street lights, all you see is a couple of water bodies, all you see is landscaping around it. But the lighting was planned for that, and that is what it was doing. What it is doing is bringing light all together downwards, not spilling light into the sky. So that was a very important aspect of it. And also, we remembered that all the buildings are the heroes there, and they need to stand out. And that is what the planning of the street lighting and planning was done. I have got a very, very, very interesting reviews globally onto it, and people come in and say there is nothing special about it, but at the same time it looks very calming, soothing, and the whole safety aspect is taken care of it very well. This is another example of having conscious design onto it. This is the project. Left hand side is the rendering, what you see, which we did for the project in all the way in Lusaka, and right hand side is the outcome of it. We actually used only one product to implement the entire project, because the reason being Lusaka is much behind us as well in Delhi. When we went there, we realized nothing was available there. Nothing is realistically available in terms of lighting and technology and all those bits. So this is what we did was we actually literally made the design very simple, implementable at that space. So if you see right from the garland, it a broken effect, to the linear strips and the porch lighting, all are done by one product itself. All we did is made it simplified. So that is something how we approach. This is another project which is my favorite, Maha Bodhi Temple. We just finished that, and the entire complex, we were hired to plan this whole project, and it took us about 5 years to finish this project, all done now. We were hired to light up the monument, and I wanted to do something else there, which is, of course, the client wanted, the whole community wanted this lighting up the monument, which we did. And we started with a very different concept and landed up to have a lot of color there, because it was Bihar, and the DM came in and said, "Ye ज़्यादा sophisticated नहीं हो गया." So we changed it to color changing and came here, what we are there. Having said, then what was important was to pick up the small elements. And if I tell you, this is only 2 watts of uplight which has been used to light up this, and it looks lovely. And that's what I am coming to. The whole planning of the darkness along with the light is something very important aspect of doing things into the space. Then we had to light all these walls, but still not have lighting fixtures onto the floor, or that matter onto the wall, which was a heritage wall. So we need to we figured out how to do that, which is another days. We had a pole outside, and it has a projectors on it, focusing all of that onto the center of it, which was. But this is the most important and interesting bit of it. When I went there first time, I saw lots and lots of monks and people sitting tucked in and reading their prayers. Various, be it from Nepal, be it from Tibet, everywhere around. So nobody wanted to do general lighting in this space. And this is much which we put our foot down, and we wanted to do that. And these are the images what you are seeing are the after it has been implemented. Literally people reading in that light. And this was only about 10-15 lux. And they are still pretty good, much better than earlier. They used to have candles, lamps, things around, torches to read all this. So now they can actually read by the landscape lighting what has been done. So again, context, bringing in the context onto the project was very important, and it's implied to every project what we take up. This is another interesting project, is Heritage Transport Museum, outskirts of Delhi. It's a 80,000 square feet of a museum. If we were not involved in this project, client would have been spending about 6 times, 7 times the electricity bill, what he is spending right now, and almost would have spent 5 to 4 times on equipment if we were not involved in this. It has a very, it's a very large case study published many places. And I would insist we should see this. It's a beautiful museum, not for the lighting, but for the whole collection what they have. It's amazing actually. It has a Bollywood section in it, which is a fun part. That's some more images, some more. It's an Indian heritage transport, captures very well all of it. This is another example of a project what a lighting designer does. If I tell you whatever outcome what you see is actually purely by removing light fixtures, not adding. We were asked to do the facade lighting, and they had planned to light up the screens from the front, all of them. And we were, it's a house, we were doing the interiors and exteriors, both of it. So we actually went in and removed all the light fixtures in front of the screens, and we told them, when you actually want to celebrate or do the facade lighting, just switch on the lights inside. It's a 5-bedroom house. You're not going to celebrate by closing the rooms and switching off the lights inside, and that's the outcome. So sometimes we are called and said that we need to fix the light fixtures. Yes, that is job, but that's not the only job what we have. uh, then another aspect of it is, I always say that whatever we do, we were talking in the today as well, that whatever we do is nothing which interior designers or architects do not know. They already know that. They already have an idea about it. They know exactly what needs to be done. But what we do is we just take the barrier ahead. We make you fearless. That's something which we want to bring in onto the table. And that's how we work around with it. This is another case study, which is a Gurgaon Google project. And architects, it's a courtesy architect's slides. And he had a lovely concept all around through the floor. And we were brought in to, and I would say the entire credit should go to the architect, whatever images what you're going to see is, but at the same time, what credit goes to us is we made it possible and we made him bolder to do that. This was a wall, which was a green wall as a cosmic tree through the floors cutouts, you could see, had to be lit, and it was very difficult to do that. And also making plants survive in that condition of Gurgaon and HVAC condition. So there were many aspects of it. These are the images which are implemented now. We completely changed the way the workstation lighting should be, and it is one of the best workstation biodynamic. A lot of things are talked about. We can take it another day onto it. All that is implemented into this part of the project, and has the other bit. What you see is every light fixture is an integral part of the interiors, which took us a lot of time to work together with the interiors, and that is what we brought in. And if you see some of the places where you will see, we made them very bold. Only this linear light fixture, which is a very thin one, only about 25 mm, we made sure the lighting levels are available to the Google standard in the space, which the architect, when they thought or ideated, I can't take the credit of the whole image, what he's built, he's done that. I was just doing the lighting, but I made sure it worked. So this is something what is also our job into it. Some more images. Even the graphics and everything was thought through it, and it was collated together. This is the workstation lighting. It's one of the best workstation lighting in every science aspect what you see globally. This is another aspect of it. When we come in, we also want to create a experimental or experiential part of design with lighting designers, and this is where sometimes we come in handy. This is a very interesting case study where we were working with Goldman Sachs, and who have never used color in any of their project, never. And there was a very large dining area where they had a ceiling which was getting debated a lot, and it was almost about 6-8 months and it was not getting closed. I was part of that meeting in that time, and architects, interior designers, everybody was sitting and trying to debate about it. Finally, they had to give away the ceiling because of reason, and I was sitting, I said, let's do a light sculpture here. And this is the first early sketches which we gave, and they loved it. And then came the making part of it, and then we went in and ideated more, changed the form, worked around it. It's a very large dining space which is used for a town hall and various aspects of the places. These are some of the sketches which we done. Then we worked further, more details, models, everything. The whole construction of a product was done for this project, and complete detail engineering was done in this. And this is all done by our office, and right from the screws, nuts and bolts, everything was planned for that. And then we made a wave which was a two-sided, and I needed a mathematical model to solve it, which we worked out because it was very difficult to construct it. So we wanted to have a mathematical model to help us to do that. So that is what we came up with. Finally, a mock-up, and it was assembled. And then another challenge came in. I had to aim all of them because the wave had to be given a form, and these fixtures could be moved. And Goldman Sachs did not allow me to go up the ladder, 18 feet high. They did not allow me. So finally, what we did was we actually holded the entire sculpture at about 8 feet, got the auto lifters, and lifted in one piece. This is about 7 tons of weight, almost about 75 feet by 35 feet wide structure, and then this is the outcome. Now, what was important is it was the structure which was doing interior lighting, but it was always thought through to be a facade lighting. What you see from the outsides in the courtyards. So light has this very interesting aspect. It travels, and it's very difficult to control. It is a problem as well as a help also. So this became like a facade lighting, and this image is now also a corporate image, and they have a lot of color in it, which is what it is. And sometimes this is the way it is. These are some of the outdoor images from the courtyards and this complex around, and that's what we get. That's another experiential fun bit which we did in the Italian embassy. And when we start using lighting material and the aspects of lighting into it and trying to build things around it. This is one of the Viziati installation, which was a temporary installation which was done in Italian embassy. And it was very difficult to photograph this. The only fun was you have to move around to see it actually. And every time when you see it, you can't see the same thing. So that was designed by intention that way. It is so that, the first thing which came in our mind is, if we build an installation, everybody is going to just take a photograph and take it back. That is what they're never going to enjoy themselves. So we wanted to build something which they have to give away their camera and move around a little, because even I couldn't take a great photograph of it. This is the best I have onto it. Then this is another short video of how lighting and automation as well as the complete integration of it, which is a part of lighting designer's job, what we do. It's this video sums it up very well. So I'm going to play that video. So it's a JCP Experience Center, which we did, and every part of it had its own relevance to it. There is the outdoor part, the external part, the holding area which comes in, and then you move to the other. The real part was the exhibition area, where a lot of integration of images, photographs, interactive stuff is there, which is going to come after this now. So if you see this. So everything talks to each other. The screens are there. They are also contributing to light in the space, when you will see some of them. These interactive spaces were built, which are again planned with a control system in the background, and how the lighting, audio, video, everything. There is a sound here. I don't know if it's so even the engine, they got it, one of the engines which we actually created lighting inside it also. They allowed us to open it and put some lighting inside to create a little bit of drama more to it. This is the screens which were interactive. You can touch things. We'll have small miniature models onto it. Interactive stuff, the lighting, the small displays come in. All this was designed in our office together with the various architects, interior designers. Interactive stuff, when you select the video, interactive video comes onto the image. So this is the highest level of integration between interiors, audio visuals, lighting, interaction. Everything was planned and done and implemented to the end. That's it from me. Thank you. Oops. Yeah.
Thank you, Harmeet. That was an amazing presentation. Could I just wish that, I remember seeing your Italian embassy installation. I wish you had a video of that one. Would have really loved to see that. And could I request now our Chairman-elect Rishu Anand, along with Dr. Harish Tripathi, to please come up on stage and felicitate Harmeet for his wonderful, wonderful presentation. Please hold on to your questions because we'll do the Q&A together for both the speakers. And now once again it's my pleasure to call another really acclaimed lighting designer and somebody who's done presentation for IIID a few years ago at IIID. Welcome back, Mr. Sai Tallapragada from Tungsten Studio.
Hi, thanks for having me. Harmeet, that was great actually. So, in continuation to what Harmeet did, I'll probably more concentrate on the interiors part of it. More like, like again, starting from what light is, probably how lighting could be done, things like that. So I'll have a basic introduction. What I want to do is a little bit on the design approach, how we could take lighting in a simple terms, and what actually is expected from lighting in a space. Um, so this is one of the images I like a lot, a little bit, which shows artificial, the bulb and the sun. But anyway, so as we all know, 80% of our sensory perception is experienced visually. So whatever we see, without and it needs light to be able to see, and we can say it plays a very crucial role in our perception, whether it's surroundings, whether it is it could be the spaces we live. It applies in a similar way to architecture, interiors. Say this image is of a restaurant. So the food, how do we see it? How do we perceive it? You get the right light, you get the right color. You know what you're actually eating. So also, lighting basically it you create an atmosphere. It could be, this is a small lounge in a space, and it's just lighting the artwork, so you're not really doing much. It's more about creating a space where you're just relaxing. You have not overlit space, and the focus is what it needs to be. So atmosphere depending on the space. um, in this one, with light, you could actually direct people to walk somewhere, or you are directing them to move into a space. So in this one, if you see, the end of the corridor is lit, and it's very lowly lit in the way. So it's like a guiding path taking you all the way, and then there is the entry. This is a spa entry, but it kind of tells you, with the light you could actually create a movement. You don't need a signage to say there's something happening there. It could be, through light you're guiding someone there. And with lighting, again, it's something you create comfort with. It's a bar in Gonzalo, in one of the Marriott hotels, and here it's very dimly lit. You have light only where you need it, very much relevant to the atmosphere where you are. Um and even the screens at the back, these were some punctured metal screens which have light behind, so it's not even what you call glary or something. You're kind of uh, having a little magic in the space. So it's trying to give you comfort. So, and lighting, again, you can make it intimate, like like your a fine dining space. Maybe you're trying to create the light which is not overly lit, again focusing on where you are, but again being relevant. This is a kitchen, so you can't be the same as probably what it was in the bar. or in a fine dining restaurant. So, lighting, I think has to be, more trying to be relevant into a space. And all this basically is to do with emotion in a space, right? What influences the desired emotion? I think there are two main things, which is the people, and one is the context. So people, it is to do with cultural sensitivities. It could be the way we grew up. It could be past experiences. It could be with individual tastes. So lighting, I feel, particularly, many people ask me how should the lighting be, particularly in living spaces. I would say it's more about individual taste. I might like something warm. I might like something very dull. But maybe the way we grew up, many people in India probably are used to having bright light source. Like at home, you are used to having living in a white light. This thing. This is something I learned when during our college times. Like we used to always, the first question when I started lighting was like, we use white colored light in India, and say European countries or the Western countries use warm a lot. Now people are using warm, but that was a simple interesting thing, that it has to do also with the climate. For us, we feel white is actually making it cool. Like we have hot temperatures, so we feel that we are in a cool environment, and for them it's already cold, so they want warm, which senses like fire, it feels like. So it has a lot to do all of that. Right now we travel a lot, so we are living everywhere, we know all that, so maybe we try to bring that back into the thing. And context, again, type of space, be it a kitchen, you're working, or a office space, could be different, or it has to be very much related to the space. It could be a fine dining restaurant, it could be a hotel. So all this should ultimately lead to creating emotions in a space. And most importantly, people, the first one, so it should be more user-centric, obviously. So, and context, the reason I said context is the same thing, the same working, the light may not work here, may not work, what works here probably won't work in Europe or some say in US. So it should be more, to the context of what we are designing. So lighting can't be just numbers. It has to be people, context, the spaces, all of that. But you know, yeah, this is also in terms of locations, specific to a task, I would say. I mean, like, so where you're positioning a fixture, it's not about the number on the, like on the table, but it's more like where it is. Are we talking about shadows? There's so many things to consider, like how Harmeet said, architects and interior designers know, but we are just making these little tweaks to just make it more appropriate to the space. For me, if you ask, the fundamental objective of lighting a space is basically to evoke an emotion in response to the space which is being lit. But we come across a lot of this, the misconception is always when people come to us, we still hear that a lot, like what do you think is the lux level we're going to get in the space? To me, I mean, like, I would not design for lux level. I would try to run away telling a number. It's not that I don't know the number, I don't want the number. I just want to make that I'm designing a space where it's comfortable, more appropriate for that number. You could actually deceive by lighting surfaces. You can make the space bright. You can use less energy, still be appropriate, say for a workspace. Maybe you're not getting the 500-600 lux on a table, but it's enough appropriate. But that's the whole thing about lighting. I've come across this online somewhere where this is how a lighting of a space should be done. Like you have a grid to form, the beams to form. So you're only talking about the level on the floor. Then what happens to the walls? You have dark ceilings, you have dark walls, you have unnecessary scallops. You stay there in that space for a while, it starts feeling gloomy. So lighting it's about trying to be more appropriate to all of this, instead of having that misconception about how what lighting should be. So ideally, if you ask me, the design approach, it should be like any other, like whether it's interiors, architecture, lighting should be the same way. You should empathize, feel what the other person feels, trying to mirror their opinions, try to have their expressions and hopes there. And we learn a lot. Actually, we try to always have a meeting, like with the user, with the client. I just want to understand the whole thing of who is using it, how are they going to use it, what time are they going to use it, things like that. And probably we learn a lot. Actually, the space might be different. Like an office for someone could be a different office could be again different because of the user, their preferences, all their sensibilities, and all of that. And we always look for opportunities based on that. We learn, and then that's when we start to see how we would evoke that emotion in the space. So what are the key tools? I mean, like, I think there are a few things you could do to evoke these tools, which you already all know. But basically, one is brightness. Like I said, I might like a dull space, someone might like a bright space. But then if it's an office space, you want some kind of level. You want it to be bright, you want it to be energetic. It should be appropriate to that. Maybe some monuments, maybe you don't want it to be overlit. You have to respect architecture, you have to respect the material. So maybe you do a little bit of, like subtle lighting, enhancing, what is important in that. So the brightness probably is one of the key tool. And again, this is a spa reception. So, ideally, I would not want to have it so much evenly lit. I would, pick up key areas, make it subtle, dim, like, it's the first point. You're going into a spa, you want to have that experience, so the lighting needs to be more appropriate. So brightness plays a key role there. In exterior spaces, it's a resort, so again, it has to be appropriate to be in a resort. This was one done in Hambantota, Sri Lanka. It's a Shangri-La property. So you see very specific points lit. It has more, you see a lot more on the architecture. You see a few other elements there. It's not evenly lit. You see, like how Harmeet was showing, you try to make the sky visible rather than lighting up everything. And then the second tool I would say is color. I mean, like, you people sometimes tend to use color very I would say wrongly, because you kind of use it everywhere. But maybe this space, this was a nightclub, which makes a way that you could do something to do with color, and it's not overly lit everything. You still have the sculpture lit in warm, you have a backdrop in color, so it's more appropriate to it. It becomes dynamic, so you can change the color. Is one of the key things which could be used. Again, the monuments, I mean, like, architecture, I personally feel the materials, the heritage properties they kind of look very good, like in warms, amber tones. But sometimes color maybe more towards festivity. But I think there we have to take a call. If it's a permanent thing, I would personally prefer something color warm, like doing that. And sometimes with color you could even create some focal points. This was one of the executive lounge in one of the hotels, and you see the blues used there, or the color which is on the top. So it's very much defined to creating a little focus there, along with some shadows on the cedar above. Color helps even to create a focal point, or maybe sometimes to do with shadows. And again, color temperature, the same thing. You have a little warm, so it's more appropriate to hospitality spaces where you want to keep it warm, you want to keep it dim, things like that. Then the third one is the contrast. Again, so it's always depending on the space. Again, unless you have some dark spaces, you can't really appreciate the lit ones, and the contrast there helps depending on the space. So in this case, this is a fine dining restaurant, so where the tables are lit, you see a dark floor. So it's more intimate. You kind of create the space based on that. So contrast is one of the important thing. And then this is a hotel reception lobby, so you want it to be a little bright. You still want people to be able to see where they're going. They're directed towards the reception, so you're creating little accents towards that. But that's appropriate to that. And again, contrast here, this we were trying to, so always what I have seen, Charminar has been always lit in color, and from the outside it's over floodlit. So what we tried to do there was, we tried to light the inside. So you see the arches more. There's actually, I was quite surprised to see the amount of detailing inside, the arches inside, and it looks quite beautiful to the outside. So the contrast there, what we were creating is, we left the building dark. We were just using the interiors to be lit. And the same won't work, say, in a mall corridor. So you want it to be bright. The contrast is less. So depending on the space, how you would want to do. This was a mall corridor, and with the same thing, the contrast, you could create direction. Like an example here, you see the puddles of light on the floor. It kind of directs you towards in the corridor, and and this being a little premium space, you kind of keep it a little low, lowly lit, surfaces lit, and then you kind of create a dimension. So the direction, this is again one more example where the wall lights are used as a sense of creating direction within the space. So you're leading. This is actually in one of the, I think, the Indigo properties, where from the reception lounge you're walking towards the banquet halls. So that's for that. I've shown this. So how do we apply these tools? Like I was talking about brightness, contrast, color, all of that. So what I would ideally do is first layer the light, as you have always probably heard about. So I think with layering, you can actually relate back to all of this. A little sample approach of how we would probably approach a space, where this was a living and dining space in one of the sample apartments we were doing. But I would just try to show how we would layer it. So one, soft glows, where the coves, the ceiling coves are lit. So you have a little soft light within the whole space, which is enough to move general light in the space. And the second layer probably is the decorative layer. This is more creating aesthetics in the space. You are trying to enhance the interiors with decorative lighting. Then you have a focal layer, which is more the focus towards the display units. So this is one third layer which we have, where so the appropriate brightness levels would vary depending on what you're trying to create the whole space. So I would want, say, people to see the focal part of it, so I keep that more brighter than, say, the coves or the decorative lights. And then is the task layer. So you have more light on the dining table, you have light on the sofa seating area, which helps people around. So that's using these. If you break it down into many layers, then you can again translate it back to seeing which should be my brightest layer, which should be my is there a color needed in the space, is there something where I could create contrast, maybe the accents are a little bit more dramatic, where I'm trying to create a little more darker spaces. So a few more from our projects, like more an ambient layer. If you see, the cove in the ceiling was actually the whole ambient layer. You can see that implemented something like that. And the wall coves there, the light in the steps. So I could say those are the ambient layers, and maybe the puddles on the floor are more the accents, which are like creating something on the floor. Here, when I'm talking about the focal layer, this is a reception space in one of the sales offices, and if you see as soon as someone enters, they are more directed towards the reception, because it's pretty obvious. It's the most brightly lit part. It's not overly lit, but you have something more focal. So you're trying to direct people there. In this case, again, the focal layer is our the display unit, which has something which is creating a silhouette in there. So, and the decorative layer in the same space, if you could see, it adds something. It adds to the interiors, and create some sense of aesthetics in there. In this space, again, you would have seen it previously, the decoratives there adding to, apart from the accents which were creating the intimate space, you're seeing something more decorative. The task, like I said, on the tables. And in this case, it's more specific, it's a study space, so you're having indirect light, it's directly onto the task. So, if you see a space into different parts, probably you could, you get the lighting much better, and you can drive, the light level. So if you say in all these spaces, if you ask me the lux levels, it is too much varied. Because I'm focusing more, say, on the task. I have so much light on the table, I have very little on the floor, and lux levels are an average in the space. So averages don't work in lighting, I would say. I mean, but that's how it is. And coming to lighting control, so the same layers could help in lighting control. So how do you want to control the space could change a lot. An example here, this is of a room, but it has a best example, I would say. We do a lot on hospitality. So one example from a hotel room. So say this is a master which has all the lights on. Then you have one where it's only the ambient layer, which is the table lamps, coves, all that, which is the soft light in the space. So you could think of, okay, there is one which turns on the whole thing, but maybe I want to break soft light for a relaxing environment or the atmosphere I want to create there, or one which is more accents. which I'm trying to only highlight artwork, or I'm trying to highlight furniture, study, and all that. And there comes reading, because it's a hotel room, so you're talking about having a reading light and the night light to have light after that. So breaking this up, like I said, in layers again helps in, like also to do with control. Then you can think of whether you need an intelligent system, whether you want a standard control system, so it or a simple classical switching. So it all depends on, like if you look at it the way it's broken, you go back again to, like all this layering of light. So the same thing, you have ambient light, you have accent, you have a night light, so it helps a lot. A little bit, one more example of a spa room. So the space could be different, but again, then you could control it. You could have the light like fully on, and then you can create various scenarios. You're trying to reduce the brightness in one of the scenario, where you're trying to switch off a few things and create one more atmosphere in that. There could be a treatment scenario where in there. And a huge lobby. This was a hotel lobby in Radisson, Nasik, and then you're also talking about, you're trying to see how much daylight is coming into a space. So that will also dictate how you want to control the light, how it should be. Should it be bright at some point? But you still want to create accents. So, for example, this is more like a nighttime view, which we presented at that point. So you see, the focus goes on to, like key elements within the space, but still you have the soft ambient, you have things lit. So this ultimately directs us towards how we want to control a space, like whether a system is needed, whether it's not needed. All this helps at that stage. Again, a restaurant, a daytime thing, a nighttime scenario. So if you ask me what is actually, like using all these techniques is fine, how do we break it is fine, like how is it appropriate is fine, but what exactly is expected from lighting, and what does lighting need to actually deliver in a space? To me, it basically has two roles. One, I would say, it has a dual role, basically one as an art and one as a building science. So it's a little technical, it's still an art. So in terms of a building service, it should be more functional. It should have a backdrop of being functional. It could be to have enough light to grow plants inside. It could be it could be functional in terms of visibility. A closet, you need to have enough light to see your clothes, or it could be to do the task. It's a kitchen, you need to have enough light for the appropriate task. And say circulation, you should have enough appropriate lighting to walk in a space, to staircases and stuff like that. So to be also, it also directly relates to the well-being of the people living in the space. So when you're working inside nowadays, it's more common. You're working home, you want to still have the, you have to look at your health and well-being. So lighting becomes a very crucial role there in terms of creating the required light level. And so basically, it has to be functional, it has to be durable, it has to be appropriate. So it can't be a generic light level, lux level kind of a thing, but it has to be more that way in terms of a building service. But then light as an art, it should be more to create a wow factor. So you're trying to mix two things and get the best out of them. So you're trying to create a wow factor within the space. It could be to do with the nature of the space, it could be to do with the context, it could be to do with cities, the aesthetics needed. So light works more as an art in that sense. If you're looking at it as a city level, it should be more than a building service. It could be also to do like an art, you're trying to promote the city, things like that. And also aesthetics in terms of spaces, you're trying to add a little bit. In this case, there's a little bit of color behind the vanity spaces. So it's more than giving the light level there. It's a hospitality space. You want a little bit of a magic in there, so you kind of use properly something, limitedly light and things like that. And more than everything, it should be more relevant to the people who are using the space. So to me, art is a product of experience, an interaction of people with their lit environment. And as art, lighting can be a catalyst for human emotions. So I would say the key decisions is the choice of emotion, what you're trying to achieve in the space. That should be the most important thing. And for each emotion, what is the layer or the technique to be used? Like what is the right brightness level? What is the contrast to use? What is the thing? And then comes the system, the luminaires, performance, the lux level. You're meeting all of that or not. And then the location of fixtures and the interaction with the space. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sai. That was once again amazing. I've heard your presentation before. I love the use of layers, and I think a lot of people have understood layers a little better today. As the architects, interior designers, we know what it means, but I think those few slides of yours were very, very helpful. Could I request our treasurer, MB Ravi Kumar, along with our co-opted MC member, Amit Sharma, to please join us to felicitate Sai on stage. थोड़ा आगे और थोड़ा बीच में प्लीज Thank you. And would you like to stay on stage because the Q&A will start? Harmeet, if you can join us. And we have a few quick questions. We just have around 5-7 minutes of our 1 hour session. So can I ask the first question if you don't mind? Yes. Because that's been a confusion I had. This is for both of you, but maybe more for Sai because you do a lot more hospitality, or maybe both of you do a lot of hospitality. I have a problem because I know what's happened is you talked about layers. I love the concept of layers, and that helps in automation. It also helps in deciding which switch goes where. And when I check into a hotel room, and we've had this problem, you want to sleep. Somebody switched on all the 10 lights because they think it's the best way to sell a hotel. And you want to sleep, and you start switching off one light after the other because nobody really tells you which light is what. So you're trying to find your way through the thing in the darkness. You switch off one light, you switch off the other, you switch off the third, you switch off the fourth, and you still can't find the night light. Then you go to the other side and you start fiddling around with the switches there. And then suddenly your person who you're sharing it with switches on one light, which turns out to be the master switch, and everything comes back to normal again. And it takes me 10 minutes normally to go to sleep thanks to this layering system that you do. So is there a better solution or an intelligent solution for this?
Hello. So I have seen that as well, but in general you're not, again the layers which I said, you can't overdo it first thing to avoid all that confusion. And also to address this, I mean like there's two, I mean if there is no intelligent system which can't be named, I see no point of doing all those layers in a hotel room. But I think also to address this, most of the brands have now come up, if I'm not wrong, like there's not much happening in a room. You always have a master which turns off everything. You just have a read, you have a night light, you probably have a wall light which has its own control, but that's the maximum layers I would say should be. But I understand, I have seen properties where within the same space there's a light for the light above the study desk, there is a light for like near the uh, uh, so yeah, so the simplest way is not overdoing layering again. Layering, like the concept helps, but you can't overdo, I would say. I mean,
Perfect, I think. And also, we are all learning also. Every time we are doing a redesigning a hotel room or something, we've come up with a very specific new scenario because everybody's having problems, and what you're saying, it's always. But the best way is to reduce the number of switches.
no, also actually I had this thing like 2 days back where we were doing a room and it had nice elements. There's light behind the bed, there's ceiling core, there is nice wall lights. So the interior designer wanted to have an environment where he has a separate control for the light behind the bed, then the wall lights, and then the same scenario happens. You have 10 switches because you have to follow minimum all of this. So we try to combine things, create a scenario, I would say, like a scene, instead of saying you have a control only for the light behind the bed or light behind or just light for the wall light. We combine things. Maybe that could be one way of reducing the number of layers and still be able to easily find it. And also in hotel rooms, what we kind of do, I think previously they are kind of missing, is you kind of mirror it, the same thing in either side of the bed, so you're not mistakenly doing. And the master is always a bigger switch. Like that should be something simple, I would say. Yeah.
Although can be automated
Yeah.
very simply, but the kind of money automation people are asking for, sometimes it is no viability to do in 500 rooms and 300 rooms. So we'll end up doing switches. There's no good answer for it. Every space is different. Minimizing the switches the only answer. Not more than 3 or 4. That's the easy thumb rule here.
I have 3 questions. The first one is, what is the difference between a lighting engineer and a lighting designer? I'm always confused. Is one more emotionally attached to lighting design and the other is very sort of cold and says, okay, like you talked about lux levels. The second one, how much should the designers, I'm talking about the interior designers and architects, how much should they know about lighting design to be able to interact with a lighting designer? And third, why is it not taught in schools?
I'll answer the last one first. So I always had this thing, when I was part of, doing IIID also, I really wondered, it affects a lot even in people we have who working in lighting, because there's no proper education in lighting in India. Somehow no one has taken it up. And I really expect someone does that, maybe through a IIID, that you have a little course of lighting introduced into a proper full course. I mean, like, the problem with doing short courses which are not part of a bigger thing is you're not taught the whole scenario of design and lighting included. You're just doing a little short course on lighting, doesn't really go with, because you have to understand the space, you have to understand exactly what you're saying. So I have to be able to, so about the other question about how much you should know about lighting, I really think you should know how you want your space in terms of, what is the kind of atmosphere you want to create, and we as lighting designers should try to actually get you that. So as long as I want the space to look like this, I want the space for me to feel this way, sort that feeling or that emotion is what I think we should try to get it. If I'm not wrong,
Perfect.
that's
So I think the whole idea about we being there is you not, and in fact, and I tell my team, the new young staff in join, they are specifically from either an interior design or an architectural background, they join. So I tell them, first thing to start is don't think about technicals. Do not think. That is, we are here. There are enough senior people who would be able to resolve that, because that is the problem with the engineering side of it also. When you start, see, engineering is very important, but at the same time, it always binds you into a box. And then, because you need to resolve it, design does not need to resolve it. It needs to improve it. It needs to take it to the next level. So that is a big difference between answering your first question, engineer and a lighting. And it goes with any domain. It's not. Some architects are very, very, very good at detailing, and you can't just, they can imagine so well in that way. And some architects, they are very, very conceptually very strong. But that doesn't mean that they are not relevant or this is not relevant. Both are there. But at the same time, unfortunately or fortunately, in lighting, we need to be both. We need to train through both. You need to know how to do it, and of course the why part of it. So you have to establish, but I always suggest is segregate the whys and hows. Because what is going to happen is, if it's too entangled, either you lose your why or you lose your how. So it's always a good idea to leave it, and that's where when we come in as a team to an interior designer or architect, I think the why bit is more important. You just communicate the why with us. We will look at it how and what needs to be done, and we'll come back to you. It'll be an iterative process, and then we get to that. So yes, of course, it is always good to know that you're using a right one or not. So a little bit of idea about lux level and all this is important. And as Sai said, education is most required, not only for even for our domain. We also are now struggling to find actually competent people to work with us and take our practices further into it. So it is a tough thing. We need to work with, and we are happy to whatever contribution we can do in that way.
My question is related to this only. As consultants, what kind of integration and what time your indulgence should be there with the project? As a interior designer, they might be sensitive about their kind of spaces they are looking for, and vis-a-vis what kind of detailing they are going to do. And suppose as designer you are involved at latter stage, then you try create some other kind of imaging to entire thing. Then maybe that kind of detailing may not be required. So what is the right time or what is your experience generally when you are involved in the project?
Uh, if you ask me, all the projects which are like really good in our work till date, which we could show it probably or in, even in which I have used in the presentation, are when we are involved at the conceptual stage. Very frankly, what happens is that ideally is the right time. I mean, like when we get used to a designer, someone has worked with us once, second time thinks, okay, we need them at this stage. So it's always a learning process both ways. But when we come at the initial stage where you're just conceptualize the idea, you haven't really put it into a thing where you're presented to your client got something. If we are there, the lighting bits are like already thought through. Then when we are coming, we are looking at the second aspect of just making it happen, not really trying to give any creative input, again trying to change it. Or sometimes what happens is when we get involved later, what I've always noticed is we come up with something which we thought, oh, it's a lost opportunity, we still present it, then everyone likes it, then it goes back, like you are also going back onto your drawing back because you also liked it, you want to make it happen. Or sometimes you can't do it, then that's when the compromise happens and you don't end up like what you probably wanted. I mean, that's my understanding.
Exactly. The answer is once you've ideated about the space, your concept is frozen. I think that is the time to get us in, because you've already thought the big picture. Now the next comes in how you want to make it look at the night time or daytime, or how do you want to make it work. So I think we come into that is the good time to get it. If you've finished your drawings, which is a lot of projects, lots of our work is already ID package is finished and it's detailed. In fact, trust me, we know how much hard work it is to get there. And we ourselves are reluctant a lot of times to come back to you and say, change it. And sometimes we live with those mistakes and we hate it later, including them and us. All of us hate it. But if we can start right after your concept, and most of us work on a fixed fee. So time nobody pays in India anyways. So why not have it on the right time?
Just to add, yeah. Okay. So for mood lighting, for mood lighting, what are the three most important parameters you think is important for 1.4 billion people? Like what kind of sensors will you deploy for the mood lighting when you're creating mood lighting? Because
Mood lighting does not need any sensors.
okay,
You need interaction.
if with an IoT, like
Be it
future of
anything.
lightning.
So first of all, these are technical jargons thrown in the world. Mood lighting has nothing to do with IoT, or it is implementing protocol to achieve the creative aspect what we are trying to achieve. So two different things. You can achieve it various, as I showed beautifully that you can just use switches and make those moods. You can go to a automated control system, dimming based system, and still create the moods. Then you can go to IoT based, where things are in the without wires working. You can do that as well. So all these are techs available, beautiful. Many of them available. Actually, there are, and all of them can be contributing to achieve the concept or a mood what you want to create into that space, depending 4 layers, 3 layers, 2 layers, or 1 layer. That matters. So depending on that.
Yeah, so I was actually, though I mentioned about lux levels, this relates again back to even IoT or not. Like you said, you can do, it's not about the technology, it's about the space. So, mood lighting, what's the time of the day, what is the space, then you do it, whether it's with switching, whether it's with some fancy technology where you will turn it on from the US and it turns on here. So it's about the space and the people using very
That
frankly.
reminds me of a very interesting project we did, Antara Senior Living, where I completely changed my approach towards lighting controls. Completely. Because what was happening was we were developing for the seniors, and suddenly everybody thought that the switches were the easiest bit. But when they implemented it, there were 5 switches everywhere, and they were getting confused which one to switch on and switch off. It was then got complicated again. So then we used automation, or I would say, since we are talking, so what we did was we converted every place with one switch. You touch that switch, the switch will give you relevant mood at that moment, at that time of the day, and it will automatically adapt for the night, evening, morning. Now, what we've done is we've got rid of the fancy 5 button, 6 button, 7 buttons. So when you see, when you're building in a house, the whole process it should be, or these kind of spaces is that you design for 300 days, not for the 65 special days. That's where we are going wrong, most of them. In that reminds me of the mood. Everybody talks about, मेरा birthday होगा तो मैं celebrate करेगा तो क्या करेगा? You do special that day. But 300 days you're going to repeat the same task again. Automation, basic principle of engineering is you only get rid of first your repeated tasks. Then you get to the critical ones. But most of the time, any time when I get a brief, anybody, client or anybody is talking about, he's talking about 65 days. That special day, what I will do.
For New Year's. No, for New Year's actually. When we do facades, this is one requirement which comes. I'm like, what happens to the remaining days? You're designing for the New Year's.
So it's a basics, as I said, whys, hows and what's will come. So be it IoT, be it anything.
I have one very simple question. This is an event organized by the Indian Institute of Interior Designers, so we'll talk about interiors. You mentioned during your presentation, I think Harmeet you also did, that the 4 important things in lighting is intensity, color, direction, and movement. Now, let's take a simple example of a living room. I have given you my ID package saying that this is the kind of furniture I have, this is the kind of upholstery, these are the colors I'm going to have, and design the lighting. But in a house, every few years we change the colors. We change our upholstery, we change the location, we move our sofas around, and stuff like that. So I do understand that you can change the colors from the luminance, you can change intensity, but it's not easy to change the location, because if you're in a bungalow and you have a 20 feet high ceiling, it's very, very tough. So what does one do in a situation like that?
So I think more and more projects when we are now designing are, if you see, I agree what you're saying about the houses. See, when you are changing, and generally what is happening is these houses are designed with the floor plan and the ceiling plan. So we can definitely have a general lighting layer which will contribute to the entire space, which is always a layer. But all your accents are going to suffer. And that's where, as Sai also comes in, was mentioning about his presentation, what genre of project we are doing. If the house has a lot of art, and that is demanding some accents, I think he will be limited with those movements. He has to stick to the movements the way it is. Because what is going to happen is, otherwise we will just land up doing a general lighting layer, and if you switch it on, you'll get everything. But more and more what we are seeing in the houses, the big ones which we are building, or the apartments that matter, everything is getting a little fixed. In a bedroom, you trust me, you can't put a bed anywhere anyways, because of the other complications than lighting itself. Same goes drawing room, a little bit of movement is happening. We have equipment. If we are aware of this input, we can plan it for sure. And then we can also try and use control system to adapt to it. A little bit of flexibility is with the lighting fixture, selection of the equipment also, because I can adjust them, move them. But again, if you do the basics right, layers are there, all that, I would say 70-80%, and I would also say the people who will move their furniture too much, uh, they might not do much on the walls
No,
anyways.
I think even there it will be limited, frankly, and if that is part of the brief, like you said, we can surely design for it. The selection of equipment would ideally change, but again, you're doing everything else. Like you said, probably it's only the accents. So probably the selection would end up being that you have something which can be flexible to move, but we see that very less, very frankly, in terms of people moving so much on the furniture. We do still give flexibility, like I said, tiltability is a factor. You can still move decently enough to be still getting all that. So yeah.
Also, smaller art, bigger art, a little bit of is there. We plan because we don't even know sometimes what art is going to come.
Coming, yeah.
What is going to come. So all that is there, but limited.
Yeah, I have a question.
Can
I think probably the last question today. No, there is one more. So my question is basically to do with layering. As interior designers, we also love layering a lot, lighting layering a lot. But I have two problems with layering. I need answers on that. If you go a couple of decades back, we used to have bulbs and all which were 100 watt, 150 watt. Today, due to the layering, even it is an LED, we end up spending, good amount of 200, 300 watt per room for lighting. So there are two things. One is that, from the start of the project till the time we actually go into buying the lights, our budget goes haywire because maybe the layering we had, what we thought, it creates a different. And secondly, because interiors, people are changing their interiors every 10 years. 10 years today is a very big timeline for interiors. What about the e-waste that we are generating out of those many lights that we are buying? So what's your take on that?
See, if you ask me, layering is not what dictates the cost in the project. Probably it helps you actually the other way where you can reduce costs because you're just trying to see what is relevant to that space. I have given an example where it is multi-layered because it was a sample apartment. You're trying to exaggerate things. But in a living space, you probably won't have so many layers. And the moment you have layers, like you control it. You have you have an X cost on each this thing. So I don't think it ends up being that much, very frankly, like that much wattage or something. It helps you actually reduce that because then you're thinking, where do I need more bright light, where do I need more intensity, as is the relevant lumens or the wattage relevant there. So you're already cutting down so much on all of that. So that I think that
Just to add on that, when your right layering will cost you more, I'll tell you when you have overdone the one layer. So when you have done too much of general lighting, you will end up doing too much of accent lighting.
because you probably did
Because you are competing with general lighting is competing with the accent lighting. So this is one job of a lighting designer which is very important to balance this, and first of all on the drawing, and then apart from it from the controls point of view also.
So one more to that, like say when the general layer and there is a decorative layer. Sometimes the fixtures you would want in a decorative layer could be giving you more ambient light. So in that case, we cut off the layer of what we want to add as a general layer. That layer totally is gone because you're anyways getting light from these decorative lights which are. But if your decorative light is more aesthetic, giving less light, but to just add as an element, that's when this layer comes in picture. So I think like if we have it right, it should not be a thing which costs. And if you have the right product, it should last all the 10 years or possibly more than 10. I have projects which are like very basic products running for maybe 12, 13 years now. No waste because it's still working. So I think knowing the right product is also equally important to use.
One more question I have. I'm talking about trend in lighting. What happened, in IIID we were doing this room which was a classical style, and we got through the market. Then we realized that most of the people are now more interested into maybe the kind of luminaires that are in the false ceiling, not like old times when we had all those brass and you have some people are doing it, but obviously market has reduced a lot, and more this ceiling lighting is. So, what is your take on that?
My take, I hate the invention of downlight. Actually, it's the worst thing which lighting happened. Of course, it solves a problem, but it's so much abused in various contexts because you would downlight, a small downlight is for accents, and it's completely different reason of it. If you really do it a general lighting decoratives, as Sai was telling, these things will still have to come. But what is happening is most of the projects we are pumping in so many downlights to create a general lighting, which is the wrong process of selection itself. In the beginning only we can discuss this because once you have moved ahead, it is very different. If there is a cove there, if your cove size is big enough, unfortunately you see the section of the coves, we struggle a lot within our, as I said, finishing of the drawings has happened, 2 inches left in a cove, it is not going to do anything but just create a line there. So all those matters, the general lighting, it's a worst design decision to do general lighting by downlighting. If we can fix that, I think a lot of fixing will happen all through. And also answering to that, your specific question, these decorative bespokes, unfortunately, I know this is a dying art. What is happening is even if we try and find these days, try and pick up something relevant onto brass or anything, we can't find it too much. Most of it is coming imported from China and then assembled and thrown away. And then the bigger manufacturers are eating into the smaller shares because now Philips, Havells, all of these big companies want to have that chunk of the business. This is another side of it. What is happening in that case is they are bringing in manufactured products, which is great, which is in its own way great. But what has the smaller cottage industry of these people who are working with brass, and one of those cases, it's very difficult to find them, or sometimes when they put it on table, they are so expensive as compared to the other guys. Unless it's a hospitality luxury project, we can't afford it. Even the residences, private residences, we face this issue. But the aspect is other side. There are still couple of nice ones, Ayush Kasliwa and couple of them, they are doing lovely work, and we do get a chance to use their products. But at the same time, it's economics which is doing this rather than a lighting designer or anything else.
So I have a question. So my question is regarding the research versus reality or practicality of the lighting. So nowadays we are talking about human-centric lighting and also the non-visual effects of lighting and so many other things. So for that there is a concept of EML, equivalent melanopic lux. And there are many standards that they have mentioned some criteria for it. But what is first question is what is your take on that? And second, how to measure all those things just to realize that okay, whether it is possible or not, or are we just using the jargons? So that's what I want to ask.
Very frankly, I don't have an idea on those standards, but I'll give you one example. When green building standards were
Just a
made.
moment, there is a standard called well.
Yeah, well, I know.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you for that also. So when green building Australia standards were being made for lighting and for other this thing, so I had a very close friend who was a sustainable lead designer. So she was having that document. She was trying to take inputs from me. And what I realized at that point, the way the standards were made is ASHRAE file says ASHRAE so and so is copied into my computer saying Green Build Australia, and ASHRAE or all these standards were made for office lighting. To start with, they were made for office lighting. A next tab is made residential lighting. One more tab is made hospitality lighting. I'll be very frank. I had a very big issue. I had lead. I think a couple of years back, we were doing a hotel. The lead consultant comes with the standards, and we were walking around the property. He says, okay, I just want to walk around, can you come with me? So we walk. He was looking for a temple and a school to get a point for a hotel. The standard was made for, say, a residential this thing. which says if you have a temple and a school in the vicinity, you're trying to be more, like sustainable, so you get a point. But when you change the thing and use it for hospitality, why do you need a temple? Why do you need a school near a hotel? So, and when I was in Australia, there was a big fight by all the lighting community about the standards. The sole reason being no one technically qualified in lighting was involved in making these standards. And I think it's still relevant to date, because if you look at a few things, technically you can't achieve that light level unless you kind of fudge a few things. The reason being, that much quality of product you want to use, there is an X cost to it, which probably whole of India can't afford in the projects in there. So, I mean, I don't agree to that. I always have this issue. We do lead projects, we do all that. We know a way to getting to that layer, not by fudging, but still, what I mean is, that's what has happened. So all the standards, I mean, my take is that I just do it for the sake of project, but there is no one involved.
So what you're saying is truth. It's the standard is available, well standard. We have to implement it in most of our offices, what we do. And all this is important. There are tools available to measure this physically, also on the paper. There are Excel tools and everything is available to do that. But having said, I think the most important what Sai is also trying to say is the context. If we come to a residential house or a private residence or a hotel room, see, no standard is still defining that there has to be a measure of how much time you spend in that space. And that is the biggest criteria of designing anything. You can consume a little more to do a task within the limitation if you are only doing it for 5 minutes.
No, but even light levels, even in the offices, for example, the light level on a table, it doesn't say the time of the day. It says this much level. You have so much daylight coming in. What do you do about
So
it?
it's changing now. Like what is happening is, as a good practice, Google's statement was best in the manual written. I read. It says by the end of the day, you need to reduce the lighting level and color temperature. So it covers whatever you are saying. It is actually implying that EML value is reduced because the warmer colors have lower EML value, as well as the lighting level is reduced, counterproductive. Sun is going out, but you are reducing the light. So it's very different, and it's very well put. I like that statement. I think we need to create simplification. Of course, these standards are, but when we are working as professionals, we need to bring this simplification, which is what Sai is also trying to, blindly just copying pasting here is not going to work. But if we put the context together, I think all of that is relevant. If you are going to, like I only suggest biodynamic stroke, circadian rhythm stroke, human-centric, only in the workstation area, not in the meeting rooms. Because you're only going to spend 4 hours in a meeting room. And then you're going to go out. Your clock is not affected by that. Actually, clock is not affected for 18, or 20, 25 hours. There is a threshold, I don't remember that exact name. So that much time you're not going to spend in office anyways, or in a space anyways. So having said these, it's a mix. The answer to your question is, it's a mix, it's a jargon misused by the industry, suppliers, manufacturers, majorly. And we are struggling with this. And half the time, we consume ourselves in discussing these aspects, but not the real ones. So, they are relevant, they are right. There is a scientific backup study available, but it is also saying it's not a standard. Most of them are good practices. So you need to deploy into the context and then decide as a designer how you are employing it. So that is what I would say. Rather than they are relevant. I can't say not relevant. He is also not saying that.
Thank you guys. We've had a rather long Q&A, longer than expected. But I request you to just stay on stage, and I think Vishu, our chairman-elect, would just like to give a short thank you note, and then we like a group photograph with everyone on stage, please.
Thank you. It was a lovely presentation, and at certain things, it was an eye opener for
all of us, you know, we are at a India Lighting Summit, smart lighting. Now we know that how to use it smartly. Yeah. So thank you everyone to be here. I would like my MC to be on stage and have a group photograph, please. Thank you.